October 2023, a renowned engineer from the Silicon Valley, California, started working on a startup. He wanted to design a utility app that can be used by anyone around the world: kids, students, adults, people from all walks of life, all jobs of culture, and all sprints of gender. So he started coding the app in a cross platform mobile development framework called Flutter. Fun fact: when asked what is his guilty pleasure, he said, hearing Flutter Google developer experts say, "What the Flutter?" which according to him is both creepy and satisfying. Okay, back to the story. So he finished coding within a week and his app was ready to be published. But something stopped him from publishing it. He said that coding this app was such a beautiful experience. I have learned so much about regular expression, state management, and the best thing is that I can see my code running live on an Android emulator. But I didn't want to publish the app on Play Store. I don't know, but I wasn't ready. So after almost a month and a half later, Mr. X realized that maybe the time to publish the app is now. So he revisited the code, which he had written over a month ago. But he wasn't prepared for what was about to come. In his own words, "I was so scared of looking at my own code, the code which I had written over a month ago. Because since I had forgotten most of what I had written, I felt like taking a look at it again would lead me into thinking that it cannot be me who have written this code. I can't be that smart. This code is so well written, it cannot be me." Eventually, I took a look at my code, went through different files just to catch up with my code, and started feeling that I won't be able to write the same code today or in the future given an opportunity. It almost felt like I was mad at my 1 month older version who built this app and was jealous of him, or technically jealous of myself. I was literally looking at functions and the state providers, the regular expressions which I was proud of while I was making the app, and was feeling irritated because it was taking me a minute to remember why I wrote this function this way. What's the purpose of this line of code? What is this regular expression filtering out? What is this variable doing? What's the logic behind this and that? And 100 other questions which were all racing in my mind. And guess who wins the race? Chaos! So Mr. X was visibly sweating while revisiting his code. The fact is that for a moment, he forgot the code that he wrote. Well, this is not very uncommon. This has happened to me several times. I remember using the reduce function for the first time in JavaScript and feeling like I've achieved a Grammy and won $1 million. But why did I feel like that? Because I knew that I've seen the reduce function several times in the MDN's documentation, but I thought that I would never need it. So using it for the first time hits different. But then a week later, I found a use case for a reduce function. And rather than thinking about the use case and using the reduce function, I kept thinking of how I used it for the first time. I even refused looking at the documentation because I kept saying to myself that you used the reduce function a week ago. If you do not remember the syntax now, I will be disappointed and you will be as useless as a piece of YouTube. I said spit, not that. Sorry. So the point that I'm trying to make is that I used to judge myself how awesome and smart I was by my potential to remember things. The more quickly I could bring the information in my brain together and make sense out of it, the more smart I was. And the more time I take remembering things, the more dumb I was. But this was in the past. Today, out of all my self-criticizing parameters, remembering syntax has been taken out successfully. By the way, why am I talking about Mr. X so much? Who is he? So Mr. X is my cousin, and he called me a month ago and told me the whole story about his personalized imposter syndrome. He asked me to give him some advice on the matter, and as a cousin, I gave him the best advice and told him to keep me updated with his progress. He got laid off last week. So I thought I'd share the same advice with you too, so that you can realize why it's important to never take advice from anyone, and especially your cousins. The first thing I told him was that a code worth remembering must be remembered. Now in reality, that's the best advice to give someone in order to destroy their career. Imagine that a state provider file is 500 lines of code bigger, and it contains around 8 to 10 functions. Now according to my advice, Mr. X should remember everything. All the functions, what inputs each function accepts, what does each function supposed to do, and finally what will it return. He should memorize the file by heart. In reality, I will memorize a file by my bladder. It's not about beating, it's about filtering. Regardless of my job posting, I always try to be a software architect by creating a high level image, a picture of how the program works and communicates with the dependencies briefly. So, does that mean there's no way to overcome the anxiety of forgetting the code or the urge to remember the syntax? Well, the answer is no. There is a way to stop the anxiety, and that is by writing documentation. There's an old saying that a developer is as smart as the documentation he or she is following. I actually made it up, so there's a 50% chance that it's really an old saying said by someone. So when I make a file and write functions, it's like a mini API or a module, which other files in my software can also utilize. So I treat every file like an API and write documentation based on that. It is time consuming though, so I told my cousin to never follow that advice. But you know what this video is all about at this point. Or do you? The last thing I told him was to never comment. I told him don't comment on my body or your code. He's an RE fan and so he understood quite fast. That's honestly the best advice you can give someone to destroy their career. Well written comments can help you quickly trace the instructions or the motive behind writing some logic for your program. Comments make your code messier and unreadable. That's what I told him. I personally think that a code is not unreadable if it's understandable. It's also important to host your code on platforms like GitHub. It's reasonable to question that how does it make any difference than keeping your code local? It doesn't if you don't know Git. When you push your code on GitHub, you can do a lot more as compared to what you can do keeping it close to you. You can create issues and feature requests to enhance your software. If you visit the repository after a few days or a week, you will get reminded about some pending work, which were those issues and feature requests that you've got to do in the project, and then plan the work for some future dates. And this way you can stay updated with your code. In short, keep revising, get better. So that's all I have to say in this video. In my last video, I said that for some people, sarcasm is an orgasm. And in this video, I technically said that sharing is caring. So I like to share my sarcasm with you guys and whatever you want to infer based on the corresponding relationships. Thank you for watching.